so it's 4 o'clock, so it's time to start. So first of all, good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to this introduction to PhD event. My name is Raul Vicente, and I'm the specialty representative of PhD studies in our Institute of Computer Science. And the idea of today's session is very simple. The idea is that for any one of you who has ever wondered what the PhD studies are about, if you're wondering what you will gain or lose if you engage in PhD studies, for any question you might have, the idea of this session is that we want these questions to be answered. And no better way to do that than inviting supervisors and current PhD students to tell you a little bit about their experience during a PhD, so that you can ask them also any question you might have to them. Okay? So for that, we have the following agenda. First of all, I will give the voice to our head of Institute of Computer Science, Heisi Kurig. And later on, I myself introduce you to the PhD curriculum. Okay? What are the things that you will have to study? What are the courses that you will have to pass? What is in general, the PhD studies? Later on, we will follow by supervisors. We'll have 3 supervisors here to tell you their experience about supervising and guiding PhD students. And we will follow by perhaps what is the most important part, which is the time when we will share with 3 PhD students to tell you their experience about the PhD studies, okay? Finally, we'll have some coffee break, and finally we'll have some panel discussion in which both supervisors and students and everyone in the audience can engage in some discussions, and we will try to answer any questions you might have about PhD studies, okay? And the final thing I will say is that please be participative. We do this event for you, so you can solve all the questions you might have about PhD studies, about whether this is something for you or not, and again, about what you will gain or lose doing a PhD. So these are very important questions. At the end, PhD studies engage around 4 years of your life, and it's a very important decision. So what we really want at the end is that you get the answer that you need, so you can make an informed decision about whether to follow PhD career or not, okay? So again, this event is for you. So please be participative. We are here to answer your questions, and you get the information that you need. Okay? And I will give the floor to Heisi, our head of the institute.
Welcome from my behalf also. I'm really glad to see the interest that you have towards entering the PhD. And I really hope that many of you find useful context from today's event. What I thought entering this room, it was like, what would be my main message here? And I think that in your case, what you all do is you think about your future perspectives, what is your goal for the 4 years and even beyond that. And it's often seen that PhD is just one step towards academic career. However, I really encourage you to think broader. PhD is not only for those who see themselves working in academia and there. If you think about our alumni, then they also work in academia, they launch their own companies, they work in different industry partners. And actually, what the PhD studies give you is really the capacity to think wider, to think about how to solve the hierarchy problems. How can you really contribute to making the world a better place, to make useful things, and really see how you can contribute. So, welcome again. I'm really happy to see you here. As Raul said, let's be active, let's ask questions, and we're all here for you. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Heisi. So I think we're going to start then with my part of the talk, which basically I will try to say a little bit about the PhD program. Okay? So basically, for those of you who will start the PhD studies next year, which is the first time in which you will be able to matriculate, if you are still master student of second year, for example. Basically, you could be graduating with your PhD already by, let's say, summer of 2028. Okay? So in total, this means that at least probably you will be involved around 4 years studying, making your PhD study. So as I said, it's a very important decision. This is a significant fraction of time in your life. And what we want is to give you informed information so that you can make this decision as informed as possible. So for that, in my talk, I will tell you a little bit about the PhD curriculum. Okay? Then I will follow with some personal view, because if you have to summarize what is a PhD, many people will say, it's about becoming a specialist, or becoming an independent researcher. And this is if you will have to summarize in one sentence. But as Heisi said, you can become many more things. And here I will give you a personal view about the many things that you can become during PhD studies. And finally, I will remind you about some important dates if you're interested in applying to the PhD studies in our university. So let's start by the curriculum. The main thing that I would like to say is that since last year, we have started a new PhD program, a new PhD curriculum. Okay? So what is the main difference between the new curriculum and the old curriculum? So the many things remain the same. At the end, the PhD studies is about research. It's about research guided by a supervisor model. Okay? So it's very important, the relationship with the supervisor. It will be mostly focused, these studies, on research. This is a difference from master or bachelor studies, where mostly you receive knowledge and you're tested on that knowledge. Here you will have to create knowledge. Okay? So the research component remains very important, of course, in the new system, as in the old. The mission, process, and the defense is largely the same. So this is what remains the same. So what about what has changed? Well, first of all PhD students will be hired as junior research fellows, meaning you will be employee of the institute with all the benefits that entails. And perhaps the two more practical differences is that now the studies are focused on less subjects. So you will have to take less courses as opposed to people who started 2 years ago with the old system. There is a significant reduction in the number of courses that you will have to take, because the idea is that the new PhD study system is more focused on skills and research. And second, also important difference is that the attestation or progress review, okay, which is the committee that measures your progress along the 4 years, will give you feedback on a qualitative manner. Okay? Before, it gave only feedback in the total amount of credits that you got assigned for your research and your studies. Now the idea is that the progress review will tell you also feedback about what skills you might need to develop more, which one you have achieved already. So the idea is that this progress review will give you feedback about what you need to develop in order to become a full independent researcher over the 4 years. So these are two very important, and I think, improvements. Okay, so let me go back a little bit. So as I said, here on the diagram on the right, you can see that the amount of credits for the course module, for the number of courses that you will have to take, has reduced from 60 credits in the old system to just 30 credits. Okay? If you divide this across 4 years, it's just 7.5 credits per year. So really, it's nothing so much. Most of the other time of work during the PhD studies goes into research, development, and creative work. Okay? So with this system, we have even enhanced more the research side, and we have decreased the coursework. But nevertheless, still you have to take these 30 credits, this study model. So it means you will have to still take some courses. Huh? And among these 30 credits, there is something that we will have to take for sure, which is this course on Introduction to Doctoral Studies at the Faculty of Science and Technology. And the rest, the other 27 credits, you can take them according to the following division. So you must take 18 credits on what is known as specialty subjects. So these are subjects or courses in which the idea is to strengthen your specific knowledge on some field. Normally these courses divide between PhD seminars, okay, which here the idea is that you will practice how to present the paper, how to be critical with the latest articles in your field, and familiarize with the journals in your specialty. So how to become aware of the state of the art in your field and become critical with many papers, because you will have to present them, you will have to dissect them, you will have to identify the strong points, the weak points. So with the PhD seminar, it's a great opportunity to practice these critical skills and to familiarize with the state of the art on your specialty. And another category of courses that you can take is what is called a specialty elective, in which you have a large diversity of courses. Here, the idea is that Each of these courses can provide you with some research methodology to tackle the specific problem in which you are doing your PhD. So among these two subdivisions, you have to adapt only up to 18 credits. So you can see it's not very much. Let's say coursework is not something that will be a bottleneck for your PhD. And you will also have to obtain 12 credits in what they call transferable skills. Here the idea is to take courses that will enhance research ethics, to become more interdisciplinary researcher, also improve skills of self-expression, oral communication, and written communication, what used to be called soft skills, but actually are very, very important. And you can use them in many domains of life, not only in your particular research field. Okay? So these are very important skills, and we are asking you to take up to 12 of those. Out of these 12, 3 of them come from the course that is mandatory, which is called Introduction to Doctoral Studies in Science and Technology. And this course, what it offers you is to be introduced to the context of research. It will explain what are the different stages in publishing a paper, for example, or even reviewing a paper when the referee's comments come back, how to handle the review process. So it gives very practical tips about the life of a PhD student, about the life of a researcher. It gives you all the context from, for example, what are the tools for reference managing references or databases, or what is open science. As I said, the structure of publishing a paper, what is the process of it. So many practical skills that before in the old system you had to learn from listening your supervisor here and there, or from some tips from other students. But now it's in a more structured course. This information is shared from the very first year. From the very first semester, you can obtain these concepts to research from this course. And this already will give you 3 credits, so you have to complete only 27 to obtain the 30 credits, which is what we are asking every PhD student to complete in 4 years. So this is about the course module, about the courses that you will have to take if you engage in a PhD study. But still the biggest module, the one that is largest, is the one on research and development and creative work. And here, of course, you will have to complete a series of milestones, like, of course, producing a thesis. We will ask you also to give a presentation in at least one high-level international conference. We will ask you also to pass knowledge by teaching or supervising, or promoting your specialty by, for example, popularization work. So there is a series of milestones that we will be asking you to complete in order to fill this research model. In practice, nevertheless, most of the work really goes into research, guided by your supervisor. And this means that at the end, of course, this work that you do, this research that you do, has to be communicated to your community, to the international community. So in essence, at the end, we will ask you also, in the new PhD program, we ask you to complete 3 papers. Normally, these papers are set in some collaboration, either national or international. And we will ask you to be at least the leading author of one of them. Okay? So at the end, your research, as I said, has to be written, has to be communicated, and this amounts at the end to be able to publish 3 papers during your PhD studies. Of course, as I said, the new PhD system is not so much based on credits, but it's based on skills. So during these 4 years, we will also, attestation committee, or progress review committee, will also assess whether you have achieved some skills by presenting orally, or presenting posters, participating in seminars, if you have teach, or you have supervised, or you have contributed to popularize science. So they will also check that many other learning outcomes and skills that you have grown them during the PhD studies. Okay? So as I said, it's important in your research, but it's important also that we develop you many other skills during these 4 years. And finally, of course, you will have to produce a thesis, mostly based on the papers that you have published. And with that, you're good to go and submit your PhD dissertation. But as I said, in general, yes, PhD studies is about becoming a specialist, about becoming an independent researcher, some person that at some point can formalize a new question and have the tools and the methods to explore that question. That is something that from first year to the 4th year, you will grow in those aspects, in becoming an independent researcher. And that is the essence of PhD. But, as Heisi said, it's also about becoming a more broader thinker, a more critical thinker. And as I said, during these 4 years, if you really have the attitude to learn, if you really have the attitude to get out of your comfort zone, you can become much more than just a specialist in a narrow field in computer science. So as I said, if you use your time wisely, you can become an independent thinker. Because one of the first things you will have to do is to dissect the state of the art of your field. You will have to be critical with papers. You will have to distinguish from papers what is true and what is overselling. And the same thing with conferences. So you will have to really doubt about a lot of the information that you read. So this allows you to really become a critical thinker and an independent thinker. And that's one of the most important skills that you will grow in your field. And you will have a lot of opportunities to practice this. So that's an environment that the PhD studies provide you. That if you really want, and if you really have the attitude, you can really grow in this aspect, which is fundamental for many things in life, not only for the academic world. A writer, also, this is also very important. You will have a lot of opportunities to write documents, papers, emails to other researchers, blog posts, many things. You will have a lot of opportunities to write. But what is even more important, in the PhD studies, you will have a lot of opportunity to get feedback from your supervisor, from colleagues, and this is what really will enhance your writing and what will make you to be a better writer. So again, in the PhD studies, if you expose yourself and you decide not only to write papers, but to engage in as much writing as you can, with the feedback of students, colleagues, and supervisors, you can become a much better writer. And again, this is a skill that will accompany you through life, and it's very, very important. The same thing as a speaker. If you really want, you will have a lot of opportunities to speak in front of your colleagues in internal seminars, in conferences, in workshops, in many occasions. And again, this is a skill that the more you practice, the better you become. So, and again, an opportunity to get feedback from colleagues, which is what really makes you improve. The same thing as a teacher. Confronting a class, teaching them, seeing what they like, what they don't like, how to handle a classroom, how to handle corrections, many things. It is an opportunity for you to be a teacher during the PhD studies, normally through being a teaching assistant. And again, it's something that from the first time you teach till when you have already been TA for several classes, several courses, you also change your teaching skills, how to communicate effectively with the classroom. Also, you have to design the material in first place, and you have to think what the students will like, what the students will not like, what the students will understand, but not so. Again, it's an opportunity for you to become improving your teaching skills. Similar with supervisor skills. In supervision, you engage in a much more direct relationship with a person that trusts you in order to be guided to obtain some studies or some degree. And here you will have to manage expectations with that student. You will have to see what works, what doesn't work. You have to manage many things in that relation. So it's very different from the teaching experience. And again, you will have an opportunity to supervise bachelor and master students. A manager of many things, of any resource that is in your lab, from the cluster to anything you can imagine. Also your own time. A main difference of PhD studies is that now you don't have any super detailed schedule. It will mostly depend on you. So you will be the one handling your time, the one handling many resources, and you are the one who independently will have to manage all these things. So again, it's an opportunity to be independent and to manage resources. And a public relations person. When somebody visits here, your group, or when you go somewhere else, at the end you are representing not only you and your research, but also your group, your institute, your university, and even Estonia. In some sense. So how to present all these institutions and your work in the best manner, in a manner that you can achieve contacts and a network and be diplomatic. So many opportunities again to become a better public relations person. And finally, as also I like to say many times, it's a PhD is an opportunity for traveling. You know that COVID is past mostly. Still it's a great opportunity to travel, to conferences, to visit other labs. This is very important. I always stress that during these 4 years, it's great if you go and visit another university, another department, to see how other groups organize things, and these are many tricks that you can learn that you can also import and bring back, and also see how they work, and learn by imitation also. So it's very important also that you, during your PhD studies, you also travel to visit, even a couple of weeks, another group that does similar research than you, or in a similar topic, in addition to, of course, conferences and workshops and many things. So PhD studies is also an opportunity to travel and to learn from other groups and other countries. And almost reaching the end, you don't do, I mean, people think that you do your PhD studies alone, of course, and in the research, of course, you are the one facing problems, you are the one who has to solve them, but not alone, okay? Of course, you have your supervisor to talk to, but also you have a network of other students that can also support you in many ways. So just to remind you that we also organize every summer SCAS, the Estonian Summer School in Computer Science and Computer and System Science. And I think this August we will reach the 20th edition, so it has a long history already. There we invite top scientists from all over the world to tell you about the state of the art of different fields in computer science. It could be from AI to any topic. And there you have also the opportunity to present and network in front of other students, okay? You can post the presentation of your work, you can get feedback, you can get many other students. So it's a very important, this social events, the social part, this networking part in summer schools is also very important, and I strongly recommend all of you to take it. Also PhD events, these are occurring roughly one per month, and these are events organized by PhD students for PhD students. Okay, and this is very important because many times you think, I have a problem, and you think you are the only one having that problem, but actually it's not true. Many times you will see from other peers, from other colleagues, they can support you, they can give you tips and tricks, and they share a lot of information at the PhD level that is difficult to get through other means or through other more formal events. So this is a great series of events, once per month, great for networking, great for getting information that otherwise is difficult to get. Getting a lot of ideas and support from other students. And also from next year, we plan also to organize some writing camps in which, again, it's an opportunity to get other people and to have some focused time for writing, which is, again, as I said, one of the main skills that you can develop during PhD studies. So as I said, a lot of networking opportunities during the studies. And I think that's basically it from my side, in the sense that we have covered the PhD curriculum, how much coursework you will have to do, how much research you will have to do. As I said, mostly is research-oriented and skill-based learning-oriented. And at the end, though, of course, your science, your results, thanks to the collaboration or to the guidance with the supervisor, has to, at the end, produce some outcome in terms of paper, normally in terms of collaborations, either nationally or internationally. And at the end, these papers, of course, from the backbone of dissertation. That's about the PhD curriculum and a little bit about how many other things you can learn. But also, then I would like to remind you, as a final slide, that if you are interested after this event, after getting the answers that you want, or the answers to the questions that you are interested in, from not only from me, but basically from the supervisors and the students, the PhD students that will come after my talk. After you get all these answers, if you are curious, if you are considering to do a PhD studies, I would like to remind you the following 3 dates. The first date is the 5th of December, in which a potential supervisor would have to provide some primary information to the institute about whether he or she is interested in opening some PhD position. Okay? So from today until the 5th of December, it would be a good idea that if you have a teacher that you like how he or she teaches, or you like the research that he or she does, and you're curious about, and you're considering, you think the PhD is something for you, you really want to go through this highest degree in academy, then contact this person before. So you can have a discussion about whether he or she is interested in opening a PhD position, what is going to be the topic, what would you like to work on, to see if there is a good match. This, as I said, is for a preliminary gathering of information about the interest of supervisors to opening PhD positions. But the formal date will be 1st of February. By this time is when the supervisor will have to submit a more detailed project file to the institute in order to be considered for opening a PhD position. Okay? This is for state funded, by the way. This is for those projects that will compete for funding, getting funding from the state. Of course, if the supervisor has a lot of money from a project or from a grant, it's possible to opening also positions without going through some competing round of projects. But, as I said, formally, 1st of February is the final date in which the supervisor, to apply for state-funded money, will have to submit a file describing the rough idea of the project, and describing also whether there is a candidate student, whether there is some student that is interested in applying to this project or not. That's why I say it's very important that before 5th of December, but of course, at least before 1st of February, much earlier actually, because the supervisor has to write the project, you contact the person that you think you would like to do a PhD with. And from your side, from the student side, it's very important the dates 1st to 15th of May, because that is when there will be the list of projects that have been approved for funding will be open, and when you will have to apply to a particular project. Okay? So this is the important days for you to apply, but as I said, it's very important that before the 1st of February, actually quite some earlier, you contact the potential supervisor to tell him or her that you're interested in PhD studies with him or her. So these are the 3 days that I want you to remember, both for prospective supervisor and students. And with this, I think I'm definitely done with my introduction to PhD studies. Do you have any questions about the PhD curriculum in general? Yeah.
So for example, if I want to do it in cooperation with the company I'm working for, are the deadlines different, and is the process different?
That's a good question. I don't know if Janica, do you know if there is any difference?
Primary information we want at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But it remains the same. Is there any other questions you may have?
Is it possible to do part-time PhD?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Is it possible to do a part-time PhD?
To the
Part-time.
Part-time.
No, it's an interesting question, I guess.
Yes, it is possible. It is possible. I guess at some point, of course, you have to, something that you have to agree with the supervisor also about which load you want to be involved. But in principle, it's possible. And actually, in this new PhD system, basically, you get 4 years of nominal time, so to say. And if you want to do it with a smaller load, of course, the amount of years will increase. So yes, that is an option. For those of you who are interested in working at the same time and studying, that is a possibility.
But funding principles will be quite different, right? Funding, financing, the salaries, all of this will be quite different in the case of part-time and also with the companies. So it depends. The company would have to pay something as well. So those will be taken case by case anyway with the potential supervisors.
Is it possible to do it in less than 4 years, say 3 years?
Yes, depends on you and the supervisor.
It was 2 years, wasn't it? In Schengen was 2 years?
Nothing says that you cannot do it in less time. As long as you meet the criteria, you take these 30 credits of courses, and you do research that at the end translate into having 3 papers in international journals or conferences. In principle, yes, there is no lower limit from that point of view.
No lower limits.
There is no lower limit in the sense that if you meet the conditions, and in principle, yeah, you can do it in 3 years.
Usually people are worried how to get the first article in 3 years.
It's very ambitious.
It's a good attitude.
You need 1 semester, I think.
At least, well, you have to take at least this introductory
That's easy.
studies, so this I will at least amount to to first semester at least.
Yes, that's fine.
Is it mandatory to be in Estonia for the whole amount of PhD time, or like you can go somewhere for 6 months and then you can work remotely?
I think this is very much what you agree with the supervisor, basically. I mean, in principle, it can be done. I was myself during my PhD study, I was 9 months in the US, for example, and my supervisor was happy, I was happy, so it depends on...
You had very good relationship.
No, I must say also, he came with me also there, so... But yes, it's totally... If you and your supervisor find, for example, a group in some other country that you're interested in visiting, it's also good, I think, from my point of view, it's also good, because then you establish a stronger connection between that group that you visit and the group here in Estonia. So I would always recommend that a student goes several months at least abroad. But of course, this always have to be validated and agreed with the supervisor. And it's something that the earlier you talk, the better about it. In a sense, PhD studies are very flexible in the sense of it really amounts what you agree with the supervisor, what you both find agreement.
I'm not sure that PhD is for me as of now, but is there a way to try it a little bit?
Well, I would say it's a commitment, because at the end there are resources that go into selecting, for example, you as a PhD student as other person. So imagine we take you. You only want to try for a couple of months to see how it works only. Then another person that maybe wanted to do the PhD studies and really was motivated is left out, for example. So in that sense, it's something that things happen in life. Maybe after 1 year, you realize that this is not for you, and the supervisor also realizes this is not for you. Of course, then why to suffer 3 more years if you really realize that that's not for you, and the supervisor also. But at the same time, it's a commitment. So the idea when you enter is that your mental state has to be that I'm gonna really, really try. I know there are phases, ups and downs. I'm not gonna give up at the first just turn of the road. That has to be the state, I think, when you enter. But of course, life happens later on. But the idea is that when you enter, you really have to believe that you are going to finish, that you are motivated, that you really, really want it. Okay? Because if not, as I said, just think that another person might be left out because of...
Sorry, but there is something important in your question, in your answer. There is a way of entering as an external PhD student.
There is.
So you don't burn a place.
But in the new system, I think to achieve the status of external student, you have to complete half of the curriculum. This is a difference compared to the old system. That would be a great model if, for example, some people work before the figure of external student was great for people who wanted to work or wanted to take things slower. But now in the new system, that figure has disappeared. Or disappeared, no, but you have to complete half of the curriculum before you achieve external status.
But Raul, sometimes research groups have some extra research funding based on which they can hire somebody prior to the PhD. So basically it would be possible sometimes to join a research group like you do during master's thesis preparation, get paid, and that is the training period, and then you can make up your mind.
Yeah, that is true.
And this is actually what I wanted to follow up about. I mean, you always can try doing researchy topics or production-oriented topics if your PhD is potentially production-oriented or industrial. But the PhD studies themselves are about carrying out a long-term project, not just about doing research, but about being able to finish something that spans 4 years. It's like trying out dating in order to try whether you want to go for marriage. Marriage is much more than dating. You can try dating, you can, get on and off and so on, and you can try the research, and you can try, and we hope you, join research groups and do something that's similar to 1/3 or 1/4 of your PhD, but that will still not scale up to the full experience of a PhD. I mean, you can try part of it, but not all of it.
It's like getting into marriage to know if you like dating.
With that analogy, I think I will maybe leave the floor to, as I said, what I believe is the most important part of the event today, which is supervisors and current PhD students to tell you about their experience. And please, again, be as active as you have been now, asking questions, because that's the way to get the answers that you need to decide whether you will go for PhD or not. Okay? So we have 3 supervisors today, Marlon, Mark, and Lima. I don't know if you want to start in any particular order. You don't have any time constraints?
I can start.
Mark is sitting closer to the stage, so go ahead.
Sure. So Mark Fišel, he's professor in natural language processing. And, well, Mark, we are willing to hear what you say.
Thanks. So I am professor of natural language processing. I am heading the research group of natural language processing, teaching AI, transformers, and, well, doing plenty of other things. I mentioned the analogy of marriage. It's probably not a good analogy. So dropping your PhD is probably even more frowned upon than getting a divorce.
Oh my God.
Anyway, on a more serious note, I probably have 3 points that I want to make and that I want you to remember. One of them is you becoming a better specialist at the topic of your PhD than your supervisor. The second one is, what did I mean to talk about? The second one is learning to explain complicated things in a simple and understandable way. And third is about The thing that has nothing to do with your thesis itself is the relationship between you and your supervisor. First, about you being a better specialist at your topic. The motivation or the reason why the supervisor takes you to do a PhD is very different for you and for the supervisor. You are interested maybe in learning to be a better traveler, speaker, and the long list that Raul listed. The supervisor either needs PhD students to do their research, or very likely they have some kind of a project where they collaborate with other partners, with industry, with somebody, where your PhD and your work is just part of it. Your participation in that project might not even 100% overlap with the PhD that you're doing. And your PhD supervisor needs you to be the best specialist at this particular topic. So at the beginning of the PhD, the first thing you have to do is really learn the background of what you're working with. Because once you do, then you will know the topic better than the supervisor does, and the supervisor can ask you like, hey, I have this crazy idea for what you can do next, and you can say, okay, I know that there is this background paper about it, and this thing has been done, but this thing has not been done, maybe we change it somehow. So it's not about being smarter, it's just knowing the background of your particular topic. The supervisor will have to think about something broader. So the supervisor with the long experience will probably be better at drawing more abstract analogies, thinking more broadly and connecting your topic to somebody else's topic and where it fits in the big picture. And this is something you will learn during the PhD, thinking more abstractly and more generally. But it's perfectly fine and it's desirable that you know your topic better, because the supervisor, I mean, I have 6 PhD students. I cannot, and each of the topics is very deep and very interesting and very diverse. I cannot compete with 6 people in terms of even time invested into knowing each topic so that I would be better than them at this. So, and it's perfectly fine that you know your topic better, but the supervisor sees the bigger picture, and so you make a perfect combo. So learn to know the background, don't be afraid of knowing more than your supervisor. Second thing, what was the second thing? Second thing was about being a good speaker. If I tell you that this year I'm opening a topic which is called quality estimation in large language models using non-autoregressive black box methods, you'll be bored. Unless you're already, unless you're really interested and you will follow me. So, and if I'm a beginning PhD student and I'm going to tell you, oh, I work with quality estimation of large language models that use that might be technically true, and you might say it not only verbally but also in writing, but that doesn't reach your audience, whether that's a reader of your paper or somebody you're talking to at a conference, or even a fellow PhD student. Instead, if you say the same thing that I said now, but you say, you know, ChatGPT, like, and the other large language models, and how their output is not always reliable, sometimes they just imagine stuff and pass it off very confidently. Well, I'm working with methods that would detect this automatically, and not just any methods, but I will use non-autoregressive language models, which means that they don't wait for the previous output word to generate the next one, and also I will use these and these methods. I'm imagining these things now, so it might not get any clearer, but if I explain it simply like, hey, language models make mistakes, and we want to detect it automatically, and that's why, well, because that will make them more reliable. That's much more helpful when you write papers, when you talk to somebody, when you try to, you know, convince somebody to work with you. So it's not very easy. It's easier to read papers, to learn some kind of a background, but it's very desirable that you can summarize it in your head and express it in your own words so that it's understandable for somebody. That also involves you being able to listen and to perceive how, like, on which level they are listening or talking. So, but it's fine to use simple words. You don't have to use the complicated lexicon. It's very necessary that you can explain the complicated stuff you're working on and your supervisor proposed in simple terms, in understandable terms. To quote Richard Feynman, the Nobel-winning physicist, so he has a very nice book, surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman, there. He tried to read a book where I think a sentence said, It is common for the average representative of the human socium to use verbal graphical means for exchange of information. He read it several times and still couldn't understand it, and then decided, okay, I'll translate it into normal language. I'll try to understand it and translate each sentence. So it is common for the average representative of the human socium to use verbal graphical means for information exchange. He thought about it and finally understood that it meant people read. So no need to express yourself in a complicated way. Don't be afraid to sound like to use very simple terms and to sound as if you're coming down to somebody's level. It's okay, that's what's desired. What was the third thing? Yes, the relationship with the supervisor. The PhD studies, nominal duration is 4 years. And it's not only about how much you like the topic and whether you think your supervisor is a good specialist in that topic. I mentioned marriage. It's maybe not a perfect analogy, but still, you're going to spend 4 years with this person. So there's a scheduled divorce in the end, but it's not only the topic, not only your research is important, you having a good vibe, a good sense about your supervisor. I don't mean spiritually. I mean, during your work with the supervisor, it's extremely important that you have a good relationship. And that also means that when you consider a PhD topic and a supervisor, be very careful about who you pick. And the supervisors should be just as careful about who they pick, because the PhD candidate can be knowledgeable, have the background and so on, but if you just don't click, and I don't mean wait magically for clicking with somebody, otherwise don't take them. I mean vice versa. If you have some kind of a strange feeling about the supervisor, or the supervisor has, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to happen, then that's also important. So, because it's a long-term relationship, even if you manage to do it faster than 4 years, which is unlikely but possible. Still, so all of these things that are not directly connected to the PhD thesis are still very important and will have a great influence on your experience and on your rate of success and so on. There's definitely more, but I'll stop at those 3 topics. Thanks. Shall I?
Okay, so next we have Marlon, who is Professor of Information Systems and very experienced in supervising successful PhD students. I think more than 20 right now.
5 later, yeah.
So always happy to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I'm Marlon. I'm Professor of Information Systems, and in the sidelines I have a company, and I'm Chief Growth Officer at that company. And I'm going to talk about 2 things. What do we do in information systems? So just doing a little bit of publicity. And then talking more about expectations of supervisors. And I think what my impression is about expectations of PhD students. Like any other professor or senior staff member, we have a research group. My research group is about 15 people, which maybe there are 5, 6 PhD students typically. And we conduct research on a given topic, we publish internationally, and we build prototypes as well, and so on. So my field of research is information systems, which is like the systems that companies use to run their work. And my specialty within that field is how to optimize business processes, which is a big word to say how do you optimize the work in a company using technology in order to increase efficiency, productivity, quality of service, and so on. We are a bit of a special field. We call it applied research field because basically we look at a problem. How do you make work better, faster, cheaper, etc.? And from that point on, everything is allowed except killing, doing something unethical or illegal, and in our case, not improving the business process. That's what you need to achieve, right? And so therefore, we take different hammers every day. So we have a problem, and we try different hammers to see which one fits the problem. So naturally, over time, my group has worked on approaches that are based on, different types of graph algorithms for doing searches over effectively business process knowledge, but also recently approaches for machine learning for predictive or causal analysis of data in business processes. And since recently also applying large language models and Gen AI techniques in general to identify opportunities for improving business processes automatically or for implementing automations, for example, in the tasks of a business process. So it's very applied, and the people who join our group are people who are two types of people. There is a minority, maybe 20%, who are interested in going into academia, out of which maybe only 10% actually do. But the majority, 80%, are there, come to our research group because they want to possibly have a springboard to climb into higher end positions. If they started straight out of the bachelor or the master's, they could get stuck in like the daily work and the daily stuff I have to do. That often happens, and then the high-end technical positions stay far away from you, and your dream work stays far away from you. Whereas if you do a PhD and you apply, for example, right now, Gen AI techniques for analysis of business process knowledge repositories, for extracting opportunities for improving efficiency in a company, then in 3-4 years down the track, you could land in the right spot and or start your own company in that field, and therefore you could get a little bit farther if what you want is to focus more on the technical leadership and all the architecture and thinking rather than operational matters. So that's for research group and what we do and why PhD students come to us. More generally, I think that in our group we study basically how to make money in the company. So ultimately, that's what it is about. So I am a strong believer in you have to have your incentives very clear, and your incentives can be of very different nature. So a PhD proposal is made out of a supervisor who has a certain interests in terms of what they want to achieve, and a PhD student who also have certain interests in what they want to achieve, and you have to be very, very sure that you are aligned, that there is a very nice intersection, and that you're very well aligned in terms of what you want. So my selfish side is I run a research group. I live as a research group. We live out of attracting research and delivering on research projects. That could be research projects for a company, like, I don't know, we have worked for Swedbank, we have worked for Microsoft, we have worked for IBM, we have worked for Cybernetica, U.S. Army research labs, etc., etc. Or funded by European Commission, projects funded by European Commission, etc. So, and we have to deliver on those projects, and we want to find PhD students who can contribute to those projects and who can help us to achieve the objectives. That could be building some techniques, putting them into a prototype, doing extensive benchmarking, and ultimately also for like publishing or disseminating that research and projecting the research team as one of the leading research team in the field worldwide. So that's our interest, our matter. And then you have an interest, and then that's where we start the conversation. So your interest could be, I want to start a company roughly in that field of analytics and AI for information systems optimization, for example, and you come to get those skills to start that company, and perhaps to prepare for that, or you want to you want to be an independent thinker, which is one of the things you say. That's very, very good. You want to become perhaps a high-end consultant who is like an independent thinker and who is a leading thinker in their field, and you would like to be able to springboard into such a position. So some, for example, past PhD students wanted to become like top-end SAP consultants, and they do a PhD for 4 years, and then they land in their dream job in terms of being SAP consultants at the architecture level, and then they 10 years later, they are very successful in terms of climbing the ladder in very large organizations. Another one could be interested in, like, I want to gain skills into these emerging technologies. So, say 6-7 years ago, we had a few PhD students who wanted to come to our group because they wanted to do machine learning for solving business problems. And then they went to industry, and some of them are at Swedbank, some of them are at Twilio, some of them are at DeepMind, which is like, it's a Google company, I assume, right? Etc. So they go to companies where, to positions rather, where they might not have been able to get there, or they probably would not have been able to get there without the expertise that they gained in a PhD, and possibly also without the stamp of a PhD. So that's my point here. It's really about finding the incentives, the win-wins, understanding why we are doing it. So please understand why your supervisor is interested in supervising, and then of course understand why you are interested in doing a PhD, and talk about it frankly and find why you want to get together. And I think that is perhaps as important as like giving a try. Usually we recruit PhD students who have done a master's with us, but we sometimes recruit people who have not done a master's in our group as well. So try to get that understanding before. And it's not about the money, right? Let's be very frank. It's not about at least not about the short-term money, because I can say that my former PhD students earn their living extremely well, by all means, probably better than me. But it's not about the money. So there is positions are sufficiently well paid that you don't have to worry about finances. But it's definitely not money the incentive here, so it has to be something more abstract. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marlon. The next speaker is Lima, senior lecturer in artificial intelligence, and has been working on medical imaging and AI. Probably many of you recognize him as he has been also teaching some of the most popular courses of data science in the institute.
I was just promoted, thank you, Raul, to a senior lecturer.
That's what it said, senior lecturer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a nice way to find out.
That's very nice. Nice way to find out. You did let both professors come first. I think it makes sense. Yeah, lecturer of computer science, well, lecturer of artificial intelligence, to be honest. I'm leading a biomedical computer vision lab. That's what the slide says. My goal was to just give you a little bit of a flavor of what kind of PhD projects and what kind of research we do based on the example of my lab. Just to also maybe contrast a little bit what Marlon was saying about business and optimizing business and these kind of things. I'm more into let's treat people and let's not give people kind of hard times when they get cancers, and maybe diagnose cancers first. So I'm coming a little bit from a different place. I have a bunch of slides to present my group, just to give you, again, flavor, just to immerse you into that field, to give you this kind of feeling of how this feel like to be in that kind of position. When I present my group, I usually ask people to think of a very large number. And then, since they don't really go that far in my efforts to tell them really large number is really large number, then I ask them to think about the number of stars in our galaxy. And usually they don't know the number of stars in our galaxy. If you do, let me know. We need to talk. So it's about 200 billion stars in our galaxy. And as it turns out, the problems that we are solving, and many of the research groups solve, actually bigger than that. Because, for example, average human body has about 37 trillion cells. And this is the complexity we're talking about. So this is the type of hardship we are talking about. So it should be actually the other way around. And if you think about stars and galaxies, they're not so interesting. They're very much pressed matter of the same kind in a large quantities, while we are very, very sophisticated matter that sophisticatedly communicates with itself, right? So there are lots of ways how these things work. We contain, as I said, trillions of cells that make up tissues, that make up organs, and that help us function, right? And as you can imagine, all that complexity comes with a bit of a salt at the end of the day, because this system can easily break. And one of the ways it can break is, for example, by acquiring a rogue cell that starts to replicate without any control. It's a cancer cell. And it starts to invade its own tissue, which later leads to it invading the organ and metastasizing into the entire body and essentially killing the host, right? So this is the type of problems me and my group are solving. Actually, not just me and my group, and some of the research here also kind of focuses on. You might ask me a question. We are in the computer science building. How is it even related, right, at the end of the day? And the answer is like this, that people like us who have computer science background, we were pretty good at solving certain type of problems. For example, we were pretty good at classifying images into a huge number of classes. We were pretty good at, for example, building some of the autonomy into cars and helping them to navigate without much of human assistance. We were pretty good at training systems that can mimic human artists and drawing really cool pictures by the prompts, et cetera, et cetera. And as it turns out, many of the problems on the left side have some sort of representation. Sorry, these kind of problems on the right have representations on the left, which can then lead us to, really solve complicated and biological and medical problems. I can give you a couple of examples. So my group is working with cellular images, microscopy images, where we work with these type of cells. And what we do is we train AI models to detect those cells, quantify those cells, and really try to understand, characterize these cells. And these are cancer cell lines. So basically what happens when people, doctors and biologists, they think of a new drug is that they don't really go around the streets and randomly kind of inject it into people and see what happens. They take cell lines and then they just put this drug on the cell lines and see what kind of cells, how they react to it. So this type of images, this is what we do. Then we have been also working with more complicated things like that, which look a lot more terrible to human eye. So the human eye usually don't really recognize cells from these type of images, but for the eye there were no problems. This is where we can talk about superhuman performance, because humans are not really good at doing this, and AI seems to be quite okay. We actually have developed models that are working in industry. So some of you have been asking about doing PhD in industry. We have actually had experience of having a PhD student that was kind of in between the company and the university. They were actually working on company's problems with the university supervision. It was a separate contract. It was quite, I would say, quite successful project. So our systems actually work in industry, in industrial labs, and with real users. Then if you go to the tissue level, we work with local hospitals. We help them to automate a process called histopathology analysis, which is the process when you have to take a biopsy. This is the biopsy thing. They take a part of the tumor, and then they look under the microscope and they see images like that. And then they have to do a lot of things. For example, they have to find and detect the cells from these images. And by calculating the cells, they can diagnose a person, whether this is a tumor or is it a benign thing that is not so much, so important. Finally, at the organ level, I'm also co-founder of the company. It seems to be, I don't know, somehow biased panel here. But basically, my company is dealing with building AI systems that can detect tumors from the computed tomography images, so something like that. For example, it can detect kidneys, it can detect liver, and it can detect a huge tumor. And it helps radiologists by doing pre-analysis. So before somebody opens the scan, the analysis is already there. and everything's already done, so that they wouldn't waste too much time by going around and seeing whether this is a real thing. Finally, just to summarize, so what we do is we start with cellular images. We work with companies, by the way. My lab is very much industry-oriented in a way. We are applied, very applied. So we work with Reviti and Syngenta on the cellular images. We work with local hospitals when it comes to tissues, and we work with a company called Better Medicine that I have basically co-founded on the organ level. So that is what you get. I guess you can expect from the kind of research. I'm not saying that this is the very classical research that you would do at the Institute of Computer Science, but I would say this is probably the level you can expect from labs that work here, for example, from Raul's lab and from Mark's lab, et cetera, So this is probably my take on the research, and I do agree with both Marlon and Mark about having to really understand the relationship between the supervisor and yourself. I guess it really comes down to whether you're interested in, these are my group, by the way, some of the stats, whether you're really interested in a topic and you're really eager to suffer a little, because that's what sometimes complicated research entails. Thanks, that's all.
Nobody's eager to suffer, some are able to take it, but nobody's eager to suffer.
I think there's some eager to suffer for the sake of reaching some cool stuff.
What's with the PhD graduates? Why are they not in their real number plane?
Because they haven't graduated yet. They're in imaginary numbers. There are two imaginary numbers. They're very close, but not there yet. I don't have 25 graduates, but not myself. Shall we move?
Thank you very much. Okay. So now it's time for the students. Okay, so for current PhD students in our institute, and I would like to start by Bruno, because I think you have to live today.
There. Oh yeah. Hello everybody. My name's Rucy, and I am a junior research fellow. I'm for a PhD student here, and I'm going to talk about my experience, but from the point of what I achieved. And at the end, I'm going to have some key observations on how it was. So actually go through my first year as a PhD student. So, right, so I'm a PhD candidate in symbolic AI. So symbolic AI is like really different than almost what everybody does here. It's not machine learning. It's like, I know it's insane. There's something else to AI than like machine learning. And I'm at the third semester, so keep that in mind that what I'm saying is from somebody who's that early. I'm 1 year and 3 months in, and my thesis title is Distributed Differential Reasoning. I can say I am like one of the leading experts in this in the country because I'm the only person researching this in the country. So, yeah. And a small warning that I'm a bit abrasive in the way that I talk, but these are my opinions. I'm not saying, rules or anything like this, because usually people get a bit afflicted with what I say. So, now, what have I achieved so far in a year of PhD, right? So I have written 4 articles, and I have submitted all of them, and I got 1 accepted so far. I'm not sure about the others. And then I have supervised like 6 or 7 master theses, and all of these are the ones that are like active, 1 defended, and the others are like on the way. So from that, because my time is a bit brief, so what did I actually learn from my first year of someone that had like at least moderate success? So a PhD is a job, like really, forget everything else. You're hired, you literally have an employment contract, and you have to fulfill the requirements. And there is one ultimate requirement, which is that you need to publish 3 to 4 articles and assemble a thesis from it. So that's the main thing that like you need to understand. You're being hired for a job, and you're an adult, so you need to fulfill this, right, in a timely manner, or even earlier. And the second thing is that technical proficiency is the most important thing. when you're early stage. So you have a lot of ideas, your supervisor has ideas, and some of your ideas are not going to make sense. They might make sense from a distance, but when you actually test them out, it's bullshit. And so you have to iterate really fast. And how can you iterate really fast? By being really technically proficient. And so this is one thing that I'll recommend, that if you're starting your PhD, become a good software engineer as your #1 priority, so you can work really fast and get things done as fast as possible. And the second part is that, as I saw, I am supervising a ton of people. Some of them have already defended their thesis, and I actually spend a significant chunk of my time just supervising people. And if you look at very successful people in this room or anywhere, they have one thing in common. They have a lot of people under them. So the more people you have under you, the more you can get done by proxy, right? You're always going to do more cooperatively than on your own. And a PhD is a really nice way for you to practice that hands-on, right? I have a million ideas. My supervisor has many. And I need to target what I have to do, right? This is a very important thing as a PhD student. You need to target things. You need to have a focus, and you cannot waste time at all. 4 years might seem like a lot, but it actually isn't. It just flies. And so by delegating ideas to other people and having them do it and ensure that they're doing it correctly and in a timely manner, you're going to get done a lot more. As an example, you have to do 4 articles. If you delegate 8 thesis ideas, you have a huge insurance on your PhD as well. So, and the PhD is very unique in that you have the power to be able to supervise people like that, even though you're basically like a junior. So this is a huge benefit that can pay a lot of dividends in your career. And the third element is that you can get really good at actually writing, which is very, very important as well. Because if you don't know how to put yourself in a proper way, people are not going to take you seriously. They're not going to take your idea seriously. They'll just brush you off on the way. So summarizing, things that I've learned, right? PhD is a job, treat it as such. There's a lot of people make it seem as it's like a magical thing about a learning experience. But no, it's like a job, all right? You have to fulfill the criteria, and your supervisor is your boss. And there's a boss of bosses, and if your supervisor plays easy on you, then people up might play hard on him. So be very careful. Second thing, be very technically proficient. Iterate on ideas really fast. And when you finish your PhD, maybe you want to go to the industry, and when you go to the industry, they really, really care about your technical proficiency. If you look at Facebook, right, Meta, if you look at their job posts for deep learning experts and everything like this, they really don't care about your degree. They have like one requirement, be a good software engineer. So look what the big guys are saying, right? And second, take this opportunity to delegate things to other people and practice management. Always at the end of the ladder, you have to have people under you. And the last thing is that be good at writing. Write really well, make yourself heard. Make people want to read what you say. Because for you to make science, for it to be impactful, other people are going to have to cite you, and if you can't voice your ideas properly, nobody will cite you. So these are all the key takeaways that I have had. Questions? All right, great.
How many papers you plan to write in 4 years?
Well, I do plan on finishing it early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I cannot keep it up. Yeah.
So after you get your PhD, what are your plans after that?
I plan to get hired by the university as a senior research fellow. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. We have 2 more students, Mari-Liis and Giacomo. I don't know if you
I do.
go first. So Giacomo?
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Giacomo. I'm, as Bruce over there, just coming into my second year of PhD students. And taking it as building on your work, since you proposed a very good idea of building along with other people in order to have good dividends. Yes, supervising, acquiring skills, becoming proficient, PhD is a job. All of that is true, and all of that is very important. Having a good routine, having a good schedule, keeping an eye on for conferences if you want to publish papers in some venues or in some other venues, depending on what you're writing on. Supervising students to test your ideas, or if they already start with a good idea, check if that can work, if it can be implemented further. Take your supervisor as a boss, but he will have to be there for a while. I am in the process of writing my first article, a bit behind schedule compared to you. But I also don't plan on finishing early. I'm trying to get to a point where I got everything I could get from university, and I gave everything I could give to the environment, to the work environment. Something I wish for everybody here that will go into a PhD is to build connections with your research group or with your colleagues from other research groups that might have very different ideas, very different topics. But you can build collaborations on that and build upon it. I would say also as kind of a safety net. High drive, high motivation, high power to go forward. Not every time you might have access to it. You might have a very strong mental. Some people might have a not so strong mental. I, for one, don't. I'm very glad to have colleagues, to have a good supervisor I can vibe with, or at least can give precise schedules and work with that. What more could I say that has not been said before regarding the PhD life? You will have, according to the revised contracts that we have from 2022, you will probably have to teach, either for seminars or as assistant, as a TA, or you might also have people coming to you, to your office, and be like, hey, we are one person short for this course. Want to work with us? You might say yes. You should say yes, in my opinion. Students are a great way to learn. Mostly to learn that you don't know. So you have to prepare more. You have to get more proficient. And I believe that the technical capabilities, as Bruce was saying, will come along. So, yes, that's pretty much it. I don't really have a lot more to add. So I can take more of your questions. What are your ideas of entering into this magical world, which is technically a job? Get a good routine, please do it for yourselves. Get a good schedule. Take time for unplanned failures in your ideas. And work along with that. Any questions?
What is your thesis topic or like the field?
The field is providing better explanation in AI by feeding them common sense on a simple level. On a more complicated level would be, we have to understand how humans explain things to each other before understanding what we expect from a model. If we can make the model able to explain us something in a way that we, as people, kind of agree with, might be a better way to accept the information as valid. Of course, assuming it is valid. Other questions? No?
very much. And now we have our third PhD student of the session. This is Mari-Liis.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mari-Liis. I am a fourth year PhD student. So I have, I'm gonna like, I was told to tell my kind of experience, so I'm gonna tell my experience. So I did my bachelor's here in computer science. I did my master's also here in computer science, and I was actually, all my thesis, master's, bachelor's and master's were related to bioinformatics. I started from there. Well, I really loved the environment already back then. I mean, like one good thing I can tell you right away about like joining PhD is that, I mean, the people here are just amazing. I mean, some of my friends say that we live in a utopia where everybody's kind of polite and nice, and even if you have some problems, they are like in this nice level, and mostly everybody's really polite, and if you have problems, you usually can talk to people. They offer solutions, or like even if they don't, like it's nice, and the discussions that you have with people here are also really cool and philosophical, and so the environment is a very cool place where to be, very many smart and nice people. So anyways, I liked the environment. I also kind of really liked teaching, so I knew I wanted to be a lecturer in university, so somebody told me that I need to get a PhD. So I thought, okay, let's do it. So I had a very good supervisor in my bachelor's and master's, so I thought maybe I can also do a PhD with him. And so I proposed the plan that I should do a PhD. Will you take me as your student? And then I was okay, like yes. So we didn't have like a research group yet. It was just my supervisor and me like starting my PhD. It was back in 2016. And when I listened to Bruno, where did he go?
He had to go.
Okay, that was exception, yes. Yes, I have to see notes from Jaak and Raul as well. Because but institute is so big, like I can only tell, because there are like 90 plus PhD students or something, yeah? So I know only like some stories from my part of this, so I don't know, but this was a rare case for me to see at least. So anyways, my first 2 years were, well, first of all, when I came into PhD, I didn't know what I was really getting into. It was just inertia going there. And also I kind of switched topics, because my supervisor switched from bioinformatics to machine learning. I also switched, I actually wanted to switch as well, because I really liked machine learning already from the first year of bachelor's. So the topic was kind of new to me, and when Mark and you guys supervisors were telling, like, first you go and you do your research and like you kind of read a lot of articles and try to get into the field and find the gaps and ideas, like what to do. And it seems, yeah, okay, I can do it. I can just start reading and do it. It's not as easy, actually, in all fields. Like, I guess the fields are really, really different here. So for some, it's like there are so many gaps, you can just pick a gap and start like filling it and I guess do something. In other, especially maybe more theoretical fields, or where there are like so much research done that it's much more difficult to understand like all of the field or the topic that you're getting into, and understand where are the gaps, and like it's not as trivial as just read something and then understand where you contribute. This can already be an obstacle, and for me it definitely also was a tricky thing to understand like where to contribute. Fortunately, for the first article I got quite a bit of help, like finding this research gap. But for me in the beginning there was a big problem that, fortunately for you, that's not a problem anymore, because when I started, there was no, like, PhD students were not, like, employees. So there was, like, 400 euros scholarship, so I needed to work a lot, so I actually was teaching more than half load and, like, taking a lot of courses and trying to do research. So that was insane. I mean, in 2 years, I kind of overworked quite a bit, because, I mean, the thing is that, one thing I also want to emphasize, that if you like come as a new student, especially if you are maybe a shyer person or maybe an overachiever, or you want to do really well, or you are motivated to do stuff, and you don't really know what are your kind of rights, or what should you like do, or like, because oftentimes people like propose to you, like, can you do this? Can you supervise that? Can you do this? And you're like, okay, yes, I have to do those things anyway. So kind of from the start, understand that you don't have to do everything, and kind of think like, what are the exact goals, and kind of, if you don't really know, you might not have the feeling like, how much should I then do, or what to do. Talk to other students, talk to like others, see what's the norm, what do they do, and then kind of like protect yourself right from the start. Because sometimes like people don't, there is nobody like hovering over you and thinking, oh, she's already doing too much or too little. Like nobody's like protecting you from the outside from that, so you have to do it yourself to like see that you get your goal, like that you meet your actual goals as well. So I did my 2 first years of PhD. I got 1 article published, which was actually a miracle, considered how little time I had to actually do research. Then I went away for a few years. I had 2 kids, and I came back last year. So to continue. By the way, tell me if I'm talking too. My field is like kind of theoretical machine learning. I'm working in like when machine learning models predict something, they oftentimes give a confidence with their prediction, how sure they are of this kind of prediction. And these confidences can be like, they can be overconfident or what should they be in general. So my general topic is to make them less confident maybe, but also to just kind of think about what are these values even that we get out from there, and what we would like to get, and all kind of all about those probabilities. So anyways, when I came back after 3 years, the field had moved on quite a bit, so it was a little bit challenging to kind of, I didn't have to start from the scratch because my part of the field hadn't moved on so much, but it still was like, took some effort. So my case is like a little bit different because it's not all of you do that during your PhD studies. But it was also kind of cool to get back after having done a very difficult kind of thing, and coming back PhD seemed really easy. I was like, I can do PhD now that I have to, like, this is easy. But it's still, so last year I decided not to like teach almost at all and focus really on research because I hadn't done it in my first 2 years. So I tried to do that, but of course I ran into different kinds of problems. So because now our research group is bigger, we have like 1 supervisor and 6 or 7 PhD students, I don't know. So and yeah, so I'm just checking my notes for what I wanted to say. Sorry. So, I mean, somebody in the coffee room said really nicely that, I mean, it's so easy to see, like, okay, you come, you read the papers, you get understanding of the field, you find the gaps, then you start writing the paper. It seems logical, like, you can do that. It's like, what's the big deal? Right? But the thing is that this process, you have to really understand somehow how can it be enjoyable to you? Like, how do you work the best? So for me, it turned out like, I came back, I started to work on my research, but then I felt like, I'm doing this so alone, like weeks and weeks and months, and it's like, okay, you meet up with your supervisor, but they are not doing the like work with you or for you. They are consulting you from time to time. Like, but like maybe 2 hours in a week you have a meeting, but then 38 hours a week you are alone, you know, doing your research. And if you are a person like me who thrives on communication, then it's like not very fun, or like, and you don't understand it for the first 1 month or 2 months, but after the time like sums up, you start understanding that it might not be for you. So like, I think one thing that is important also to discuss is like also the working styles in the group. Like how many people are there you can consult with? Is there only one? Is there any person you can consult, or more? Are there postdocs, or like how does the like system work? Is it possible to do collaborations? So if you thrive on collaborations, is it possible to do something like that? So kind of try to analyze yourself and understand how do you work best, because there are a lot of people who work best alone, and that's great, and for them the system works great. Definitely. If you're not that kind of a person, the good thing is that there are options available, but you might not know that they are available. So if you have these kind of issues, also kind of you kind of know what to do, but it's difficult to do because you're not enjoying the process. So kind of also you can speak up on those softer issues and find solutions and talk to people. I think it's possible to do that. But yeah, somebody told nicely that the difficult thing is that when you come, you're already smart enough to understand like what is good and what is bad, or at least on some level. If you see something good, you say, yeah, oh, that's good. But you cannot do the good thing yourself yet. So if you're a high achiever, it's like really stressful environment where you're putting in your effort, but like the newest papers you read, you're not gonna write those alone. So like, what is my value? What is good enough? Like, how do I even recognize? So this kind of stress from that is a really big deal as well. Like, you want to believe in your work, but like you understand that you're not achieving this like perfectionism yet, obviously. So that's and also like you have those high expectations and at the same time you have really low control over the process. Like I want to emphasize also that there are like different kinds of research that are done here. Some of this is more like applied and kind of you can already from the get-go set a clearer goal, and you can see that it will turn out fine one or the other way. You can kind of start going and something will turn out from this. And then there are more kind of exploratory research or this kind of discovery-based research where actually you don't know what's going to happen. You might work for a long time and nothing comes out, and like your supervisor cannot tell you that, hey, try this, something will work. They don't know. They don't also know. You just start discovering, and that can also like, you want to achieve high, but the control is low. You don't have yet the skills, you don't know what's going to come out, and that creates a lot of stress. So, I mean, and all those things, you should also ask from your supervisor, like, what is the type of research we have here? How difficult it is to set actually the problems and solve them, and so because I think there are some topics where it's gonna like on average it's gonna take more than 4 years just because it's much more difficult to get the discovery. It's not bad in any sense, and maybe you might also ask if the supervisor has funds for keeping you on for longer if their field of research is. If you can see that all the PhD students take more than 4 years to graduate, then you're probably not going to be the exception, you know. So you can already ask from the get-go. So, I mean, just like ask a lot of questions. Like imagine yourself actually being here for the long term, and like I can understand that from the start you don't really know what to ask, but talk to other PhD students. Like try to really get their opinions and stuff, and also during the process, try to kind of, you're a human, so try to like protect yourself. You're not the brain on a stick. You're a human, and kind of, if you have hard times, like speak out, and I think people are nice and they will try to help you, but they might not see you struggling, so just, yeah. And speak out already early, don't wait until the 3rd year or 4th year. Just identify the problems early on. Okay, I think that was my lecture. Any questions?
Yes. So, how do you balance responsibilities of being a PhD student with having kids?
Actually, it fits quite well. I mean, with like kids are like, I mean, the schedule of a PhD student is really flexible. So, I mean, I can work on evenings, I can work on weekends. So, I mean, it's actually very comfortable to do that. So that's not an issue. Yeah.
How is the process looks when you collaborate with your supervisor, and how many time you spend on average with your supervisor?
For me, like classically, it's like once per week, or like hour or two. But depending on the needs, if I need it more, then I can just tell and ask. If, for example, if I'm on some critical stage with my paper that needs to be ready at some point, then I can like meet much often as well. So, or if I need more time to do something, then I will just meet less. Yeah.
Thank you, Mari-Liis.
Thank you.
And now we have planned some small coffee break, and after that, after 15 minutes or so, we will meet again for some panel discussion with the supervisors and the students. Again, the students will be here, and then we can have many questions to them. We can resolve all the questions before we finally meet finish the event. Okay? So yeah, now we can take some drinks or snacks. So yeah, the main idea now of this final part of the event is that here we have supervisors and the students have shared their experience with you. And now is the time to really ask any question, any curiosity you have about the PhD studies. So they are here to answer any particular question you might have, okay? I have some annotated, but it's not me the one who has to get the answers, it's you. So please, any question you might have to any of them?
Can I offer an icebreaker? I just had an idea while sitting and listening to Bruno. I don't agree that PhD is like a totally normal 9-to-5 job that you just come, you sit, and then you come back. I think it's a lot more than that. I think it's basically. I think it really resonates to what Mari-Liis said. There is nobody who would be looking after you and saying, okay, you can clicked in at 9 o'clock and now you clicked out at 5. Done, well done. It actually, it's all on you. You can do it whatever times suit you best. But I agree with the statement that yes, you need to fulfill your commitments. You have to deliver. You have to show up. So all these things matter. But when you do it exactly, it's very flexible. So in that sense, you have a lot more freedom, and this makes it a lot more challenging as well because we have humanly needs to, sleep longer, and maybe I don't talk to somebody in the coffee room, and at the same time you have to still deliver. So it's freedom which comes with the price.
I can ask. I know Dima, Mari-Liis, you studied in here. And from the master's you came to the PhD, it was kind of natural step. But how did you find out about the Estonian PhD positions?
As the answer might be the more anticlimactic ever, through a mail list. I contacted a friend of mine I was working with in Sweden. I was working as a TA at the time in a course about machine learning, the same lab where I studied for my master's. And I couldn't seem to find a good PhD. I really wanted to be in the academic field. I really wanted to also be a TA. I couldn't seem to find anything. I applied to many positions that were advertised on university website. Got rejected by many.
In Sweden?
In Sweden, in Denmark, in Germany, in France. I think one of the others was in the INRIA University in Paris, INRIA lab. Then ended up talking with this friend of mine, which was Spanish, and just got a PhD offering for Germany. Like, join this mail list. It's here that people ask for PhD students. Found out about Estonia, really liked the topic. I had worked with computational linguistics before. NLP was a natural consequence. And then I had a meeting with Edward, Mark, and Raul. Decided to present in the most honest and straightforward version possible. The idea was, if I had to work with these people, or at least some of them would have to be my supervisors for 4 years, going with the, oh, I really like the project because I really want to do this. I also wanted to do NLP for the rest of my life. Not really worth it. Better to be straightforward and honest about your expectation and what you want from a PhD. And then I got accepted and moved here.
Great story. No, it is.
So please go ahead. Anyone who is here from bachelor or master students can look at it.
My question is for you. You moved from your master's to your PhD. Was it the same area of specialization that you moved into in your PhD, or did you talk with your master thesis supervisor and he made a new topic for you? How did you go about it?
So the thing is, my supervisor moved from bioinformatics to theoretical machine learning. So when I actually I did my master's in bioinformatics, but then I also kind of in PhD switched to machine learning. It's just this aligned well because I actually was kind of a little bit more interested in that anyway. So yeah, I did this kind of. The supervisor was saying, but the topic changed, which is a kind of unusual, unusual thing to happen, I guess.
I think for most of us who studied here, the master students, I also studied as a master student, this switch came very natural. For me, it was Jaak who sent me, I don't remember, we exchanged the emails on Christmas. I congratulated him, I wished him best, and then he actually sent me something back saying, do you want to come for a PhD? I was like, yeah, totally, I think I love the lab, I love what you guys do. So for me, it was very natural transition. I just felt that this was the right place.
I have a question about this teaching. So the courses that I would be a TA in, do they have to be like somehow related to my research field, or could it be anything from Institute of Computer Science?
Ideally, they should be related. Like at least this TAs that I have machine learning course, right? And I have, besides myself, I'm also giving practice sessions. I have 5 other people who help me to conduct it. And I think all of them have machine learning as part of their PhD. Or if it's a master student, it's also that they're aligned somehow. I think what we're trying to do is we try to get people who are aligned.
It usually makes sense for you too, like if you do the similar, like if you do research, you do something that is like aligned with your topic, it gives you much more insight, because when you teach, you kind of get a different experience with the topic. But I don't think there are any rules, like you could probably teach anything.
If you like.
There are rules that you should teach, but I guess you could teach anything. No?
I can advertise that both of them, Lima and Mari-Liis, have been the best TAs for algorithmics course.
Don't hear that from your supervisor then.
A couple of years too late, right?
I knew it.
Some more questions or curiosities?
So there was this 4-year commitment for this PhD student, but what if your supervisor leaves?
Oh, that's a major bummer.
Has it happened ever?
No, I mean, normally, I don't know, maybe you can share your experience.
It's on the process of leaving.
This takes a little bit broader answer, I think. People in academia sometimes change places, and not specifically in here, but what are the ground rules? First of all, you are a PhD student of Tartu University. So Tartu University would be obliged to help you out. If somebody leaves, drops, then Tartu University would give you support to look for another supervisor in here. It may demand a small change of topics, of course. And the other way is that usually people in academia are quite responsible people, so sometimes people leave and create new positions in the new places. Internationally, these kind of moving happens. So both choices might be there. To stay here, change supervisor, go there with your own supervisor, or some mix of the two, so that you stay here, but they continue supervising back to here. So that also has happened. So we can have multiple supervisors. One can be remote. Even if they have left, they still carry on these relationships.
I like to answer in terms of incentives. I think that the incentives are pretty aligned. It is incredibly difficult to find a PhD student. I tell you, it's like the most difficult thing to recruit a PhD student. So if I left, the last thing I would want is to cut ties with 2 hard-earned PhD students, especially second, third years where they are already like into so on. So there are a few mechanisms, and Jack mentioned, for how that person who leaves can still be the PhD supervisor external until completion, and there could be. And the second thing is, like, we don't work individually. I mean, every one of us has teams, and there are, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 senior people in a team who can not necessarily replace me one-on-one, but who know about the topic.
This is very different. Research groups are very different. This is not the case everywhere.
Yeah.
If your supervisor leaves, I can co-supervise.
We already agreed to that.
No, it's just that like, yeah, all the, like, we don't even know all the cases in the, like, I would like an overview of how different actually the, like, the hierarchy or whatever, the research groups, how they look like, because they can be really small, really big, how many senior members, like, it's very different. So just ask.
I mean, it's just maybe some groups are a bit younger than others,
Yeah,
and there are more people and there are less people. For example, my group is a very young group, so there are not that many senior people besides myself. But I have had this discussion with my PhD student, one of the last ones that I've taken, and he asked me this question. He was like, okay, what if you leave? What happens? And my promise was that I will, whatever happens, which is very unlikely that I leave, but if it happens, I will supervise you until it's over. So, and I think I completely agree with Marlon. It still kind of makes sense as a supervisor.
Also, as you can see, academia means very flexible on multiple levels. Responsible people trying to find a solution to problems is kind of what a PhD is on some level. So, I guess it can be arranged.
Is there any restriction that you can't work for some project or like for industry while doing your PhD? That like it's full-time job and then like you have really have to work with this university and then you can't work somewhere else.
Smart people who try to sit on several chairs at the same time.
Yeah.
So I have had perhaps 2, 3, maybe 3 industrial PhDs, let's call them. It's not officially they are just PhDs, but let's call industrial PhDs in the sense of people sitting in industry. But equally well, another 4 who did not finish. So not to scare you. So it's very tricky, and it's all about incentives. To me, it's everything about incentives. The problem is that there you don't have any more 2 incentives. Now you have 3 with this company. And now the company is there to make profits, money, right? And right now they are interested in this topic and they give you a patent. They say, yes, do a PhD in that topic, etc. And next year it could be directions change and like they couldn't care less. So like for example, one of my PhD students who kind of finished the first 2 years, it was like honeymoon. The company wanted to work on this problem, and that was his PhD study, and it kind of fit with my. And actually, the company was funding one of my projects, so we were all very happy. And at some point in time, the company moved on, and the funding is gone, and the PhD student is working for them, and they ask him, "You have to do whatever you have to do today," and then he had a hard time putting things. The last 2 years, he had a very hard time finishing. I guess the problem is that third element of the company's interest. Yeah. Unless you were thinking about you are so incredibly energetic, high capacity person that you can put 30 hours per week on PhD brilliantly and do 40 hours per week in a company, and you are still asking like, what else can I do today? And then if you are in that case, do apply to my PhD position.
I have had experience supervising, I think, all the levels at combined work in a company and also try to do their bachelor, master, or PhD thesis, and it is extremely complicated. I think usually people come with the expectations that they are highly capable, energetic, etc. People asking, what else can I do? But at the end of the day, they want to sleep on the weekend and they want to really just take a rest. And usually they say, I'll do it on the weekend, but this never happens. And I have this one PhD student who is in the company, who's in my company, in my startup, and startups, like established companies, change direction. Startups are just crazy in that sense. And he's kind of, with this crazy storm, he's also on that ship, right? Which is kind of going through the storm. and it leaves very little room for any research, and research is a slightly different type of activity. So it is like having two full-time jobs. So if you are fit for that, maybe. But as a supervisor, if you would approach me and say, I want to do that, and I'll be able to, I will not believe you.
Maybe related to that, some people want to have experience in both in industry and want to try the PhD, but not at the same time. And many are asking in which order I should do it. First industry, then PhD, or the opposite order. You have something to say?
I have experience. I've done first PhD and then founded company. I think it's a really good way to do it.
And one more question regarding to this topic. So in some universities there is also a program called Engineering of Doctorate. So instead of Philosophy of Doctorate, it's called Engineering of Doctorate, and it's more oriented in the industry. So you research, you take some already researched topics, and then you try to apply it to the industrial problems with the companies, and they are much shorter, and they are more focused on the practical part of the things. Are there such programs in University of Tartu, or we are just only toward to the PhD?
So we have had industrial PhD. This meant that there was a contract between university and the company. Company pays some money to university for supervision, for making sure the student is having great time, etc. And student has worked on problems put on by the companies. But there were a few cases, as far as I understand. One was in my group, but there were, I think, one other case, and these are case-by-case things. We have in the master level, we have industrial masters, and I'm not sure if you know about that one, master students. So this is where it's on a larger scale. So there are more companies interested. When it comes to PhD, it's a little bit harder because it really is a research-intense thing, and not all the companies are willing to commit for 4 years.
Yeah, like that's why they make it shorter, 2 years, and then the end result is mostly about product rather than the paper.
Maybe we should. Maybe that's.
Yeah, I know that some countries have engineering doctorates, and no, Estonia doesn't have. I am not sure that let's say the business infrastructure is in place for Estonia to have an engineering doctorate. I think you will find them in, I don't know, Netherlands, Germany, etc. Yeah, so no, in Estonia there's only the PhD program that was presented today. There's nothing hidden behind. And an industrial PhD just means a PhD done in a company. Yeah, sometimes the government gives some sort of grants for collaboration for a PhD working in a company, and it might give a little bit like more of a stability. Yeah, because it chills the PhD the funding of the PhD student place is coming from the government anyway. So what can happen then is that the company changes directions and starts doing something else, and they don't care about you anymore. But at least because you are not costing them money, then they will leave you in the chair. Yeah, and then you can finish your PhD. So that kind of arrangements are there. But I don't know, Estonia has been a little bit inconsistent with this funding. I don't know if it exists still.
So PhD, ultimately the graduation rules are the same. Although publication could be also the patent. It doesn't mean only that you have to have only conference papers. It could be also patent. But one type of PhD, I think, which is totally feasible, but we are not talking about that too openly, is that if you have the vision that I want to develop my company, but I don't have the technology yet, I need to have the period where I can develop the technology to such a maturity that I can take it from there on to the company. I think that kind of PhDs would be totally feasible, so that you enter the PhD program with your supervisor, that with 4 years or whatever plus minus, you develop it to the level that you can say that based on that technology, I can start a new company. Then university has now this commercialization mechanism through the Unit Tartu Ventures, that university would maintain a small percentage of your company when you start it as a startup, but all the fundraising, etc., can happen afterwards. You as a founder You can take the IP that you did at the university, your supervisor, your IP, put it there and start a new company. And over the time, university share could be diminishing or paid back to university, whatever, right? But you can think of that PhD also that you take the time to develop something to the level that you can start a new company. In a way, Marlon, how long have you been developing this technology to start a company? Many years, right? A couple of years, several years, it took the technology to develop to the level that you can say that this can be the basis of a new company. Thank you. Marlon, how many years of research has gone into the company?
Oh, only about one, but not counting all the failures.
How many total years?
You only bet on the winners, right?
No, the failures don't.
You had a question, did you?
I just wanted to know what are your expectations for candidates for PhD? What does the Institute of Computer Science expect of the student who wants to do a PhD here?
Supervisors can comment on what you look for.
The Institute of Computer Science expects you to have a master's degree. That's it. And then the supervisor expects you to be like, to be able to do the work that is in the PhD project, really. Yeah. And then it depends on the topic, on the supervisor, etc. Right. So I could only tell you what do I expect, but whatever I say is not true. Like, your supervisor is supposed to be a brilliant mathematician who does triple integrals from minus infinity to plus infinity, and I don't expect that, but I expect people to be a bit knowledgeable of algorithms and machine learning techniques, and probably have good programming skills and or a very good understanding of business problems as well. Yeah.
I think it wouldn't be too far off the target to say that most of the supervisors expect you to get started very quickly without very long, this kind of catch-up period and learning curve period. So it kind of does matter if you did your master's with the supervisor, so that they know, for the matter of fact, who you are and how proficient you are, and also they know that you know the topic where they work, and you kind of have the warm start on that one.
So I would say that the most important things would be motivation and capability to learn. I mean, if you have capability to learn, you can always acquire the skills. But if you are lazy or you feel that this is not your topic, then you might have the skills, but you will not progress. So. Marlon might disagree.
Especially coming from you. Like, if you don't have very strong mathematical background in algebra and topology, don't go.
But hardworking and stable personality takes you so far. I mean,
also in addition, I mean, in the new PhD system, we have the rule that the supervisor and the student also have to fill some expectation sheet so that they know from the beginning what to expect from each other in terms of how many times to meet per week and things like this. Of course, that happens already when you're accepted, so it's a bit late in the sense. But at least from the get-go, from the first month, you're asked to fill that sheet, the supervisor also, and then in principle you can sort out if there is a huge difference in the expectation in some concern, then you can find out earlier rather than later, thanks to that the mechanism. It's just a little help to align the expectations from both sides.
I can add something. You at some point, generally before being accepted, you will have an interview with supervisors and potential supervisors. That's also a good moment to ask for clarification, ask what people would expect from you, and also to say what you would expect from the situation. It's a good general vibe check for pretty much everything, which is before the whole process.
Any questions from you? No? Good?
Maybe I would like to conduct a small survey about how long it took you to do the PhD, how long you planned to finish. I know we have some outlier over there. This guy?
You cannot beat me, no.
Maybe Lima, how long it took you?
Oh yeah, that probably is not a good advertisement. I took quite a long time. It was actually 8 years. And the reason why it took me so long was that I did probably too many things that PhD students are not expected to do. If I would be a little more concentrated, it would probably take less time. But also, my field wasn't that easy in a way that publishing there is kind of hard, because you kind of have to prefer journals. This is field specifics, but it kind of takes a bit more time. But I never regret it.
You took responsibilities already in the
I started
years much more than
I think I started the group basically when I was a PhD student.
Marlon, in your case?
I see there was a question.
It took me 3 years because I did my PhD in France, and in France PhDs are 3 years, that's it. So, and if you don't finish it in 3 years, then your scholarship runs out. And I did it in 2 years and 10 months so that I could take 2 months with salary to go to the next thing.
Question?
You mentioned that you took extra things, and now I'm curious what these things were.
Well, at some point we had this amazing project with Bolt on researching autonomous driving, and my PhD was about computational immunology. You probably can get the feeling where it is coming from. Yeah, well, I taught a lot because I was basically TAing YACS courses from the very first semester. And sometimes I felt like I did so much of teaching and I had so little energy left for all the research. So that probably has made an impact. I taught also to the work. So I taught a lot, so this is the kind of outcome of this, but I also did a lot of different projects. I supervised myself, and yeah, so I was all over the place.
Is it possible to graduate faster, like not in 4 years, but maybe in 3 years, or is it not in France, but maybe?
No, here too it happens. So I have had students here who finish in 3.5 years. Now that there is like less coursework, by the way, I could conceive people finishing in 3 years. Yeah, so I think it's perfectly possible.
But I think it's also important that you enjoy the process. In a sense, it's not about a race that...
It doesn't matter.
No, in the sense that, as I said, if you really use the 4 years, you can become a well-rounded scientist in many aspects, not only in getting the 3 papers published, and that's it. So while it is possible, especially as Marlon said, now that the coursework has been reduced, to finish earlier than 4 years, in principle that is possible, of course. But maybe you should take at least 4 years to really round up yourself in so many aspects, that maybe finishing earlier would mean that there are some aspects that you haven't grown so much. So in that sense, 4 years, I mean, it seems long, but it's not that long. So I would use them to really become as rounded as possible in many facets.
So publishing itself takes time, so it's not something that you do like over a weekend and then it's...
Depending on the field, it takes even more time. So yeah.
But if I can add up something about courses being reduced, you could still end up being in a class of a topic that really interests you, not being registered in a course and still getting valuable information.
And you can always take more courses than expected.
That also, yes. So getting a lot of skills and widening your array of capabilities, still possible with reduced courses. Those are the ones you have to take. As you said, take more.
I'm very happy. I'm the only one who said that yes, you can do it in 3 years. So I'm going to get more PhD. Thank you. Thank you.
The message was unclear. If you want to finish it in 3 years, come tomorrow.
No, but if you listen to what Bruno was saying, that it takes a lot of self-confidence to say that I am the best specialist in Estonia on this topic that I just started to research, right? to get to the level that you feel that you are mature enough to actually get the PhD means that you have to be confident that you're good at something. That's not so easy.
And that's why I think it's a good thing to say, yeah, I'm going to do my PhD in 3 years.
You might not end up doing it in 3 years, but even if you end up at 3.5, you had a goal to work towards. And being goal-oriented, I think in research can be a very good thing to have, especially when topics may change, or depending on the field, you might end up finding that 1 year of very good research on data leads to the conclusion that, yes, we don't really have anything conclusive. So people don't do this expressed in this paper because it can lead to nothing, but we know what not to investigate. Goal-oriented.
I have a question that, so according to the new system, PhD students are employed as junior researchers. What if my PhD program goes into the 5th year? Will this contract still last? It's possible to extend it.
First of all, it's possible that during these 4 years, you can decide, for example, at the end of 3rd year, you know you're not going to finish, and you can choose to be half load, so to say, with a load of 0.5 over the next 2 years. In total, that would amount still to 4 years, but you simply divide one of the years into 2, of course, with half the load. And maybe, of course, you can cover the other part of the load by teaching more or by some contract with, if your supervisor has a grant or a project that can cover the other part of the load, that is possible. So there are mechanisms to extend, especially if your supervisor has grants or has projects, they can pay you. It's, of course, possible to extend over the 4 years. But that, again, it depends on case by case on whether the supervisor has the funding to cover you. So that's case by case situation.
In short, the answer is probably not, and you better finish in 4 years.
Except in bioinformatics.
Except if you want to do 10,000 other projects and stuff like that pay money anyway, but then, well, why don't you just finish your PhD and then do those things?
We have had many discussions, so trust me, that's not the first one, it's not the last one. Yeah.
Do you have some more questions or curiosities on the PhD, on the life of PhD students?
Oh my God. Where does Marlon get some free shirts? Questions?
Is there any age limit?
No. Maybe lower bound or upper bound?
No, I'm the older one.
No.
So who has been the oldest to defend PhD? About around 60, wasn't it?
I have seen people finishing PhDs at, doing PhDs during their 40s, 50s occasionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have had maybe one who was in her late 30s. Yeah.
I had actually a master's student in my course who was basically I think in their 50s.
You had a student who was late 50s. You had not finished, but...
Age doesn't matter so much.
Well, you need to have 4 years left.
You still have to have your master's.
But if you think it's only 3, you can apply to me, okay?
If you feel like your time is running out, you have to make the PhD faster.
Good motivation.
With this note, if you don't have more questions, maybe it's time to finish. It has been 2 hours and a half, roughly. We have covered quite some ground from the PhD curriculum to the experience of the supervisors and the students. So what I really hope is that here you got the elements to make an informed decision if you're considering to join us next year with in a PhD studies. Okay, so that's what we wanted, and I hope we have achieved it.
Thank you. The last question about language requirement. Is there any language requirement that you have to know Estonian, like C1 or B2, during the PhD time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because I think, I'm not sure like it's applicable or not. I read that like the teachers should have some language skills, like Estonian language, and Like, since if you do a PhD, you should also teach something in the university. So, is it applicable?
I think our program is all the subjects we have in English. So the PhD program, all the courses are in English. So in principle, that is not practically applicable. So we have not had any issue with that topic.
It's nice if you learn it.
Yeah.
But it's not like...
If you add 2 years to your curriculum.
Oh yeah, learn some Estonian.
Oh, that's why it took.
That's
why it took 8 years. Yeah, but if you want to do it in 3 years, you can skip that.
So thank you to the speakers and thank you for coming.